one of the big challenges is that, 10 years ago is one person, 5 years ago is probably 100 people, and 2 years ago, I don't know, 300-400 people. So like the processes and the systems that we set up when it was 10 people don't work when it's 50, and certainly don't work when it's 100. And then the processes we redesigned when it was 100 cease to work when we're 200, and that just continues to play out. And a lot of the way things are designed and built when you're operating at a relatively small scale, you can rely on the benefits of just simply being small, and the benefits of not having to manage a lot of complexity or a lot of people within the system. And as we're scaling now, it's designing intentionally processes that are as lightweight as possible, but that streamline everything from how decisions are made to how capital is deployed, to how we coordinate between different functions. We're geographically across a few locations as well, so how do we coordinate across locations? But that's a constant state of process design while you're flying the plane. So it'd be nice if you could sort of pause everything that business has to do and say, hey, for the next month, let's work on all of our processes. But we're also flying the plane, so it's not, pragmatically you can't do that.
Sure.
We have really aggressive timelines for launching a whole host of different products. So it's part of it is learning to run and simultaneously swim and simultaneously design the way we're running and swimming. So it's complex.
Yeah, in your book, Jim, you describe the difference between, or you describe something called enabling bureaucracy versus coercive bureaucracy, or sort of just a free-floating enterprise. And what you just described, RJ, sounded like you're trying to build that enabling bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is kind of a terrible word, but a way to govern a lot of people as lightly as possible towards a common mission. So how are you two working together to build, you've described it as the Rivian Way, or how are you working to build that?
Yeah, I think RJ described
working hard.
Yeah. He described it really well. It's sort of just enough sort of infrastructure to help us operate effectively. As RJ mentioned, we have multiple locations. We have a lot of different functions. We also have people that come from a host of different companies, and they all have different backgrounds, different language, different acronyms, different cultures or styles of working. And so we have the opportunity to learn from all of them, right? And sort of use that knowledge to create a unique to Rivian way of working. Easier said than done, because as RJ pointed out, we're also developing products, right? We're on critical path, and so the easy thing to do is default to what you're used to doing, right? What you brought with you from whatever company you came from, and that also leads to people sort of working in cliques, right? People who speak the same language, quote unquote, who use the same acronyms, who are used to doing things a certain way. And so what we're trying to do is be very intentional about developing the Rivian Way, whether it's the way we develop products, the way we run our manufacturing operations, the way we work with our suppliers. We want to pick all the best characteristics of what people bring to Rivian, but combine them in a new way, in a more effective way. And believe me, the temptation is to sort of default to sort of the easy way of how we used to do this. But I don't think in the long run Rivian will be nearly as successful as if we're able to do this I describe it as being very intentional about the way we create these processes, the way we build this operating infrastructure. And to enroll everybody in that process is really crucial, right? So that they develop some emotional and intellectual investment in the way things are done. And so that creates this ownership that can then be sustained over time at Rivian, as opposed to sort of imposing these things on people. So while it takes more time and can at times be a bit frustrating, in the long run, we'll end up with a much more powerful culture.
So it's interesting, the notion of wanting to create the Rivian Way, not try to copy some way of working from any of these other companies that are kind of where people are coming from. And there's the perspective of, I guess, someone like yourself, Jim, who had a background at Ford and is now, within the last year, joining up this company and contributing to the development of the Rivian Way. There's also employee number one from 10 years ago, or some of those 100 people from 5 years ago who have been, developing the Rivian Way since its genesis, that are now experiencing the infusion of the Ford Way in your case, or the Apple Way in the case of some other folks. So how is, I guess maybe just speak to your own experience of encountering these different ways of working that people are bringing into this company. I guess if you could share a little bit about that.
Jim said this, it's an important point. We're building a team of exceptional people, and we're intentionally bringing people in from a multitude of different places. So whether it's Apple or Tesla or Toyota or Ford, they're coming in with different backgrounds, and that's actually good. That's what we're going for.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's by design, not just by necessity.
But simultaneously, we have to recognize that as folks come in, we have to unlearn some behaviors or experiences and relearn and create the way we work. And that's sometimes harder said than done, or I should say easier said than done, because there's just a lot of emotional energy that you may have invested in the past into a certain way of behaving that needs to be adjusted. And it's not a one-time occurrence. It's an ongoing process of refining and maturing the way we work together. The other thing that's happening, though, with the rate at which we're scaling is processes, as I said, are changing and have to adapt to the size of the organization. And Jim and I are spending a lot of time making sure we're differentiating between tactical solutions that are appropriate for that moment in time versus philosophies or organizational behaviors that are permanent. And
I've heard the term first principles as the way
so it's another way to look at it. So when we're 100 people 5-6 years ago, the tactics we use there are very different than the tactics we're using today. But the philosophies, treat people the right way, respect one another, transparency, these philosophies have to remain. And those started, as you said, with employee number one, with myself. And sometimes if the tactics get confused as philosophies, that can be problematic. So we're very cognizant of making sure we're crisp on the things that are sacred, that can't change, but very flexible and intentionally very fluid on the things that need to change. And this is where it's been a huge, hugely beneficial to have Jim here, helping to design and build, what are the processes, and then through that to bolster and improve and deepen some of the philosophies that tie to those processes. Our strength is the team, and the team is a wonderful mix of people coming right out of college to people that have been working in the auto industry for 30 years, to people that have been in the technology space, since the early Apple days. So it's by design a mix of these experiences, and the mosaic of experiences that comes out of that is what forms the picture that is the Rivian team. Now, because it is a mosaic, we need to make sure we're organized, and we need to make sure we're thoughtful about how we combine all those pieces, and we need to be thoughtful about how we train and sort of establish how we work together. But absolutely, the reason our success is going to be built on the aggregate set of experiences.